started. So I've got a couple of people on that are interested in exits and how to make that might work, and also around understanding with a brand recognition and how that is going to play into your sale price. And certainly we're going to cover those today. There we go. A little bit nicer background there, and my camera is now working. Oh, look at everything coming together on a Friday morning. All right. I wrote this presentation probably 3 years ago. I have built and sold, how many have I actually sold? I think maybe 14 or 15 different businesses. I have built, personally started about 36. So you see there's quite a gap there. I currently have 7 that I'm running. And some merged with other businesses that I had, and some were just wound down. One of your exit strategies is to give the last products to the last clients and close the doors. You don't go bankrupt. You've just decided that you're not going to continue. The market's not there. In my case, I was moving to London, and I gave one of my businesses to my brother and the rest, so that wasn't a sale. And a couple more, I just decided it was probably time just to wind them down. But you can do all sorts of things with your business. And that's why I wrote this presentation. It was for a group of small businesses. They were all looking to work out what their exit strategy is and how to make the best use of it. This presentation is brought to you by the Australian Small Business Advisory Services, now called Digital Solutions. It's sponsored by, it's a federal government program that's coordinated through Business Station and in the Queensland through Regional Development Brisbane. And we thank all of them for actually making all of this possible. Unfortunately, the program comes to the end, comes to an end at the end of June. There will be another program that kicks off, but it looks like those that were eligible for this one will not be eligible for the next one. So take advantage of what we've got available to us at the moment. Without further ado, let's jump in. So why would you be selling it? Now, just because you get a business ready for sale doesn't mean that you actually have to sell it, but it is a particular focus for your growth that you are preparing for sale. So obviously you might be doing it because you actually want to sell, but it might just be because you're looking for a change in direction. So you'll get your business to a point where it is actually someone else could take it over, which will make your change in direction much easier. You could be planning for the inevitable. Unfortunately, us all being mortal, where at some point we die, or get old or get sick. It doesn't have to be death, but it is inevitable that we will not be able to continue indefinitely. And so planning for the inevitable, I find, is a really useful way of starting to say, well, if I can get my business ready to a point where it outlives me, what would that look like? You might not want to sell it. You may just want freedom. I've got a business that he's in the metal industry. He goes into the office 1, maybe 2 days, half days a week. Then he goes, and well, before COVID, he would travel the world. He and his wife basically just traveled. And honestly, on the half day he was there, they couldn't work out what he was supposed to be there for. I think he was just there to catch up with people, because he got his business to a point where it could be sold, or it could just sit there and generate cash for him because everybody knew what they were doing, including growth. Why? An environmental change. And this comes from something like COVID. COVID happens, and you need to get it ready for sale, but that's part of that is this big pivot that you might need to do. Now, as small businesses, we pivot way better than anybody else. You know, you look at a medium business and certainly a large business, we can pivot way faster. And that's one of our advantages. So if there's a big environmental change, you know, we can use that to our advantage and get ourselves ready for sale and take advantage of that environmental change. It might be a new market or a new trend that we can jump on, and we can now predict large growth based on that trend, and we're set to capture it. And so now your sale price is a multiplier higher than what it was going to be before. I do tend to talk reasonably quickly because I do have a lot to get through. What I would suggest is take some notes, and the notes that I want you to take are not necessarily everything is from the slides, because you will get the recording. But what I want you to do is capture the notes that make sense to you, even if it's not something that I say. If I spark something interesting in your brain, I want you to write that down, because that's the bit that you need to have a look at. A lot of these presentations have been described like drinking from the fire hydrant. There's a lot of stuff coming at you, but the trick with that is to take small sips. All right, maybe you're going to get your business ready for sale because of age. It's just time. You're starting to get tired. I have a number of tradies that have been running their own business for a number of years, and they come and see me because they want to get off the tools. Their knees are no longer, going to be able to stand it for the next 10 years. And so from an age point of view, they've got to get their business ready for sale. And the first step of that is getting them off the tools. Or maybe it's a just because. I've had enough of it. It's time to move on. And I've had those. I had 2 theatre companies, and I can guarantee you both of those were just because. I'd run them, we'd achieved what we wanted to do. We could have gone on and created more stuff and created a bigger audience and rolled out more theatre presentations. But honestly, I was kind of burnt out, and it was just because. I've done that now. And that's okay. Any questions on why you might want to do it? All right, let's move on. And remember, you can ask questions at any time. You've got access to the chat window, so just jump on there. Oh, and if you write to all panelists, then only I see it. If you write it to all panelists and attendees, everybody can see it, just in case you're wondering. All right, let's have a look at how to understand your offering. So what's the thing that sets you apart from your competitors? If I was going to buy, I'm going to pick a company here. Does anyone want to volunteer their company to be something that I'm going to sell? I'm quite okay if you don't, but if anyone wants to nominate their particular company, we'll talk about it in those terms. Otherwise, I'll just pick. Okay, I heart brownies. I'm assuming they're not magical brownies, because I heart magical brownies, but let's just call them I heart brownies. Now, what would set I heart brownies apart from the competitors? Is it the product? Is it the customer or the customer base? Is it the access to the materials? Is it the very specific process of creating? Is it the process of distribution? There are a number of things that you could think that could be a focus for your business to separate you from the competition. Is it the fact that you focus so much on brownies and everybody else focuses on more stuff, so you get to own the brownie market? So starting to identify what that is, then what we're going to do is start to look at what the value of that is. And there's formulas for this, and if I don't get to it, I will come back to this slide and we'll go through it. The next step is to turn your processes into a product. What do I mean by that? Well, let's keep with I Heart Brownies. You have a process of, pardon me, you have a process of of dealing with your suppliers and ordering materials, and I'm assuming baking if that's a thing, your recipes, your distribution, all of these are processes. But what would happen if you could turn that process into a product? And what I mean by that is you create it in such a way that everybody could just redo it. You've actually spent time. So if you create a recipe and you write it in a book, you've kind of created a little bit of a product. If you created, if you wrote it down and then published the book, that's definitely a product, yes? But what if you created it in such a way, maybe using videos that absolutely allowed whoever was going to take on the business the ability to come up to speed on exactly how you do it and why you've done it. Because if you write your recipe down in the book, the chances are they'll try and follow it and there'll be bits you miss, and this level of confidence is not quite high. But if you created a video about how that happens, that becomes a much greater product. I have a client that has a sewing machine. She makes flags, and she has something like 3,000 different stitches that this particular machine can do. And she wanted to sell the business, but the problem was no one could come up to speed on it, not without about 2 years of training. So the barrier to entry to take over her business was massively high. So she got a work experience girl and a trainee, and switching between the two, they would hold the camera and just on her phone, and she would explain stitch by stitch what she was doing, how to set up for every stitch. Then it was categorized, and the videos were stuck on a private YouTube channel. If no one wants to buy the business, there's about 3,000 videos to tell you exactly what one you do, and there's an index so that you can quickly find it. Now, I had a business even yesterday that bends steel, and they were telling me for a staff member to come up to speed, it was going to take 10 years. I went, that's ridiculous. I can be a grand master in Kung Fu in 10 years. I can learn to fly a plane in a year. I could do a rocket ship in a year and a half. What on earth is bending steel so complicated? And so their perception was that it was that. And so now what they're doing is actually going back and looking at, okay, what would be, let's break this down and how can we get someone active within the first 3 months? You see some big difference between 10 years and 3 months. But what they're doing is they're turning their process into a product, because that's part of the thing that someone's going to buy. Now, the next point there is up for negotiation. Remove your image from the business. If someone is buying your business and it has your name on it, unless your name is Brownies, it can be a little bit disconcerting when you sell something that has your brand on it. And it's not so much the image, but I find that this is something that we really need to work on with, where, oh, pardon me, some single blend coffee they gave me this morning, and it's awesome, but where you are integral to your business. So if you left your business, could anyone else run your business? For all the people watching now, just give me a yes. Could someone else step into your shoes and do the entire thing? Yes, if that's possible, or a no. Okay, so if it's a no, and this is what happens, so I got a yes and a no, a couple of others. So if it's a yes, excellent. That's a big hurdle to overcome. If it's a no, we have to work out why not and how we could get to that point where someone can take over. And this is, I'm pretty sure, like I'm 90% sure this is not insurmountable. I've had doctors leave their surgeries and be able to sell it. Now you would think that if it's John Smith doctors, if John Smith leaves, well, you don't have a doctor, right? And people were coming to him because it was him. Yes, they were, but if he starts getting locums in to start filling in for him over time, he can be replaced. And he starts to get the audience ready for the fact that he may not be around forever. And then he can slowly do that. Same with dentists, same with physios. I've got a friend of mine who's a physio who last week completely came off the tools. He has physios working for him now. 5 years ago, it was just him. Now he has a team of physios, and he is now no longer practicing or actively practicing. If someone comes in and he particularly wants to help them out, he will, but that's by his choice. So getting your image off the business. Now in his business, it is not his name. So where you can, if your image is part of the business, just evaluate it for yourself. Does it make sense to be able to sell it like that? Remember Dick Smith, Dick Smith Electronics. It was kind of weird when Dick Smith sold Dick Smith and they didn't change the name. Don't be afraid to say no. And in terms of understanding your offering, this can be, well, what is the best process for getting my business ready for sale? And if I'm saying yes to this, what am I saying no to? So if you're saying yes, that you are going to focus on your products and your processes are really simple, so you're going to say, you're basically saying no to really focusing on the process and use your product as the sales point. Well, you're saying no to anyone that might want to buy that particular process. But if that's what you want and you see that as a value, don't be afraid to say no. A friend of mine built IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. He and I were at uni together. I was best man at his wedding. We went to high school together. We're both freaky nerds. And he was just obsessed with movies, like massively obsessed with movies. So he and a couple of guys around the world started to combine their skills and wrote the Internet Movie Database and just compile lists of movies and who was in them, and then cross-reference actors and all this stuff. There's only about 7 of them doing this. Amazon saw this and they bought IMDb, and IMDb is now an Amazon product. They bought it not because they had a great big database of movies. They bought it because with 7 guys, they were managing to do a better job than what Amazon was doing with 180 guys. They bought the processes, not the product. They bought the processes. The story ends well, at least so far. My mate is in Seattle. As part of the buyout, he got a house in Seattle and a job for life and a couple of $1 million and lives there, and he's had his COVID vax, so he's all happy. But don't underestimate the power of selling your processes. And lastly, when you can, be generic rather than specific. And what I mean by that is this idea that you might say, okay, I'm looking for someone to buy the business, and they're going to want to buy my brownies or the recipe of my brownies. What if they were just interested in the clients that buy the brownies? What if they were interested in the relationships and contracts you have with the suppliers? What if they had a similar product and want to roll something out? What if they had a complementary product and wanted to do packaging? What if they were just after that process? There's all sorts of ways that people might be interested in your business. And so to be generic rather than specific, don't focus on a single thing. Have a think about all of the different things that might be attractive to someone buying your business. And we said at the start that you may not want to sell your business. That's okay. This is still really, really useful, because looking at the different ways that your business has value will give you a better understanding of the kinds of things you can concentrate on to strengthen it. If your supplier relationships you recognize by going through this process, are a very strong part of your business, you might decide, having this new information, you might decide that it's worth expanding your product range to take advantage of that supplier strength. Does that make sense? If you find that your processes are your strength, again, you might decide to bring in another product to take advantage of those processes. You might decide to expand into another customer market if your ability to connect with customers is really, really good. So understanding the strengths of your business actually gives you an idea of where you can go next, whether it's to sell it or just to grow it ready for sale. Again, I'll keep moving, but please do throw questions in as we go forward. If there's something you don't understand or you want me to explain something a bit better. Understand your customer. So make sure you've got a robust customer base. If you are going to sell your business, and this is not just for sale, this is just for peace of mind. If you have 90% of your clients, 90% of your sales come from one client, you're in a fairly precarious situation, even if you do trust them and they're going to keep buying. Because your business is based on that one thing, and that one thing could disappear. This is very much a eggs in the one basket scenario. So how do you make sure you've got eggs in multiple baskets? You have a robust customer base, spread it with at least 15% spread. So you want to have a good idea of, a good spread of clients buying from your business. And where possible, if they're all in the same sector, and it may not be possible, but consider the option of looking at a second sector as a backup. So I make stages. I've got a business that creates stages for bands and concerts and all that sort of stuff. And they're my main clients, right? And COVID hits. So they're not doing anything. And now I don't have any clients. So could I expand my stages, my client base, to other people who may need stages, such as schools? They're still going to be operating. Convention centers, tougher because they're probably not opening, but they may be looking for to spend some of their COVID investment upgrading facilities. You have a look around and see what you could do to expand your customer base so it's not all in one sector if possible. And again, these are just ideas. If it makes sense to you, great. If it doesn't, just don't even worry about it. Charge upfront or use progress billing. One of the things in looking at buying a business is going to be the cash flow. And if you have $150,000 in accounts receivables at greater than 90 days, that's a bit of a concern. So how you charge your customers is the culture, it actually comes down to what are they used to. So if you go and buy a car, you pay upfront, yes, or you get it on finance, in which case you've still paid upfront. Everybody expects that. If you go and see a dentist, you pay as you leave. Everybody expects that. If you go to Kmart, they won't let you out unless you pay, right? There's no pay up front. There's you go and collect your goods and you pay as you leave. That's the expected way. What are you doing? What's the expectation with your clients? And if you are putting them on a payment plan, or you are letting them, 60 days or 30 days or 14 days, how can you change that around to be upfront or use progress billing? So they pay upfront or 20% on the placing the order and 80% on receipt. And it does come down in a lot of businesses. I won't say all, no, certainly not all, but it does come down in a lot of business to the culture that you've trained your clients to be ready for. So could you start with new clients to set up a different way of doing it? I know a lot of coaches that will coach and then send invoices, but I do know quite a lot that will take money up front. If you want that coaching session, you pay for it up front. Just a different way of looking at it. If that's the culture and people are comfortable with it, they do it. From a purchase point of view, that's a much healthier cash flow. The last point there, in terms of understanding your customers, is to change your clients to customers. And it's a bit of a tweak there. Clients purchase and leave, and there's sort of almost you might send them a follow-up, but that's about it. Whereas customers will come back again and again and again. What you're trying to do is create a relationship where they have buy-in to your product. And again, this doesn't suit all businesses. Bunnings do not have this as a model. You know, Bunnings is built on discount and volume. I don't want to know who you are. Don't care. Kmart, don't care. It's all on volume and price. But if you can turn your clients into customers, if you can give them really good service, if you create raving fans, that becomes an asset to your business. And there are ways of measuring your client loyalty. So what you can do is you can actually have it so that when you sell your business, you might say, well, I have 100,000 in machinery, right? This is what we're going to buy, 100,000 machinery, and we have relationships with these. We're going to put a value of $5,000 on our supplier relationships, because otherwise you'd have to go and create them all, and you know that's a whole mess. And then we have our goodwill. And our goodwill is all of the clients that will stay even if I go. That's the goodwill we've built up with our customers, and they're going to keep coming back and keep saying that you're a great service as long as you keep following our processes. And you can put a value on goodwill. So I know one of the questions was understanding brand recognition, and when you look to sell it, how do you quantify that? Well, you can quantify it in terms of, because we have built our brand this way, because we have built our customers this way, we see a 30% return on customers. With 1,000 customers is the 300 customers that are coming back. So we've built a goodwill of about 300. And over a period of time, the lifetime value of those 300 customers is going to be X. So this goodwill factor equals this much money, and we're going to ask a proportion of that in the sale price. Now, for who else that one? Does that kind of answer your question about how we would do that, or would I need to go into more detail? Kind of, okay. So a little bit more detail. So branding builds into that in terms of recognition. So goodwill and talks about the fact that you have, it's your position in the market. And so if you have a high brand recognition, you can attach a figure to that. So let's say I am McDonald's. I wish I was McDonald's. My brand recognition, if I put up a golden arch, I'm guaranteed to have people walking through the door, right? My brand recognition is through the roof, and the brand itself is worth a lot of money. So what is it worth to have that brand to stick over my burger shop, so that the moment I open my doors, I get a steady stream of traffic. I don't have to explain to the market what we are. And that's what we're looking about in terms of branding. How much explaining do you need to do to tell them who you are? And we're going through this process at the moment with one of my businesses. One of my businesses is Barefoot Fish. It's an ichthyotherapy center where you put your feet in the tank and the fish nibble on your feet. We are a bulk bill service that provides not just the fish stuff, but we also do diabetic foot checks, health checks, and other bits and pieces. And it's explaining to the market what we are. Now, as that grows, our business is exploding because people are now understanding what we are more. Opening that in just down the road, we have some brand leverage because a lot of those people already know where we are. But if we opened up, let's say in Townsville now, we don't get to strengthen or lean on that brand. We've got to go through the process of education again. So when you spend money on a website, graphic art design, how do you value that in your sale? There's a couple of ways to do it. One, you could give it a 50% of what you spent. This is really poverty mentality though. You're just trying to get your dollars back, right? That's a pretty poor way of doing it. What you want to do is how much recognition has that website, graphic art and design? How much is it capturing of the market? Because that then is valued at more than it cost you to create. And that's what we're doing in business. We're trying to create value. We're not just trying to recoup our costs. Yes, if you guys are just trying to recoup costs, then you're in the business of creating websites because you're just trying to get back what you did. But if you want to leverage that, then you look at how many clients now through this brand recognition have recognized it and would see it across it and now trust it. And without that trust, a brand is quite pointless. You trust Coca-Cola. You may not like it, but you trust it. You know that it's going to be the same all the time. It has massive brand value because it is trusted. McDonald's, Coles, again, all of these companies, you may not like them, but there's a trust there because they're big and because they're consistent. Right? If you can get your brand so that it is consistent and people understand what it is and trust you, then it has value way beyond what you spent on it. About understanding the value in those things. I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. Feel free to clarify that as a question, and I will move on. Understanding your business. So in order to set a price for your business, or if you're just building it to hand over to your relatives, to your son, to your daughter, your first cousin, your brother, as I did in my case, you need to understand your business. And this is really useful for everything anyway. So understanding simple things like your pipeline. Now, I did have a company the other day say, well, we just advertise on Facebook. We don't have a pipeline. I went, oh, okay. So you don't have people just looking at the posts. Oh, yeah. I say, well, that's your leads. And then you don't have people clicking through to your website. Yeah, well, that's your pitch. And some of those will go and buy. Yeah, well, that's your sales. But there is a ratio here that you need to understand. And the more you understand it, the more you understand your business. And when you understand that, then you can make intelligent decisions about it. How many leads leads to how many pitches, leads to how many sales. And leads, pitches, and sales might mean different things in every business. If you have 100 leads and out of that you get 50 pitches, so 100 Facebook impressions leads to 50 people clicking through or doing it, whatever it is you wanted them to do, that's a 50% ratio, right? So if you've got 1,000, you would expect 500. And the trick here is to see if those numbers then hold up as you start to escalate. Because if you can get 500, what does that mean for sales? Well, if you were getting 50 would lead to 10, then 500 should lead to 100. So if you need to do 80 sales, you can, using the maths, you can work back and work out how many leads you think you need. And it's not going to be accurate, of course. All this stuff is line in the sand, best guess, that sort of stuff, but it's really useful. And if you measure it now, you'll get better at measuring it as you go on. Understanding the drivers for your business. Understand and separate all your moving parts. We spoke about the relationships you have with your suppliers, the relationships you have with your customers, your processes for producing your product, your distribution network, your processes for hiring your staff. All of these are separate. They're all separate moving parts. And each one of them, what I would suggest is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is terrible and 10 is, you could write a book on it. Where are you on each of these? Be honest. Like, it's really important that you start to think about, where am I on staff hiring? If staff are important to your business, because it is a fantastic multiplier, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good am I at this? 10 is I can blink my eyes and a perfect staff member turns up. 1 is I keep firing people because I can't hire the right person. In fact, I'm going to close the business because staff is just too hard. And I've had businesses at both ends of the spectrum. So let's say you're a 3. What would it look like to get to a 4? Give yourself a number, and then give yourself a number where it's all part of treating it as a business, not a hobby. If it's a hobby, you can grow organically and just do whatever you feel like. If it's a business, you're measuring it. And I'm sure you guys are here because you want to build your business. The fact that you're on a Business for Sale Sold webinar means that you're probably more keen than most to build an asset that you can actually do something with. It is actually worth more than what you've put into it. And so understanding these various parts of your business better is going to allow you to maximize your sale price. Or if it's freedom you're after, maximize the amount of time you can spend in Hawaii or wherever it is we're allowed to go with COVID. Ignore the P&L, that's probably poorly written, and focus on your cash flow first. Certainly don't ignore your P&L, but your cash flow is far more important. Cash flow talks about how you're going to, it gives you forward projections. So it's actually a cash flow forecast that I'm talking about. And it's, if I change this product to this, what would that mean to the market? And calculate it all out. What if I added $1 to every sale? What would that do? Would the market bear it? And what would that mean for my profits at the end of the day? What if I could squeeze one of my suppliers down by 10 cents? What would that do? Having a robust cash flow forecast allows you to do a bunch of stuff. So it gives you the ability to make decisions on your business pretty quickly. But we're talking about selling your business. It also allows you to tell prospective buyers what they could tweak and in order to take it forward. So your brownies, I heart brownies, right? I'm assuming there's cocoa and sugar. I've got no idea, sorry. Let's assume that there's lots of sugar in it. And CSR Sugar are looking to buy a cornerstone product. Now, looking at your cash flow forecast, if sugar value went down to 10%, the profits of this thing would go through the roof, and they're the company that could make that happen. And so looking at it from their point of view as a sale, you get access to these clients for almost nothing because you can do what I can't do. And your cash flow forecast shows what that looks like. It may be that, you struggle to get customers, but a company coming along has a massive list of customers that buy stuff on a regular basis. Now, your cash flow forecast says that you make good coin for everyone that you sell, but you're just not selling enough. But this new company knows that it can sell to 100,000 people. And so if I use your cash flow forecast and put in the 100,000, these are the kinds of profits I could expect. So this is probably worth far more to me than just buying your current customer base. And it's massively important to use your cash flow forecast to write a 3-year business plan that paints the possibilities and projects for growth. People aren't buying your business. Now, if I'm investing in a business, I'm actually buying into the person, not the business, primarily. I look at the person. Do they have the ideas? Do they have the strength to go forward? Are they going to be a good person to be in business with long term? But when I'm buying a business, not the person, I'm actually going to buy the entire business. I'm looking at what are my options for growth. Am I buying something that I am going to have to flog to death and work 24 hours a day for the next 3 years just to get it to double? Or can I leverage something that is in this business already that hasn't been leveraged a lot? And do I have the skills? So my personal skills, I am very good at strategic planning. I'm very good at IT. And so if I picked up I went to I Heart Brownies, and they don't have a website. Well, they do have a website, and it's a bit rubbish. What I'd be doing is saying, right, so if I added a website, what is the appeal of that? How much extra market share would that bring? If we did some sort of international ordering system and connect that with some of the big foodie type directory channels that I know exist, how can I leverage that? And I'd be looking at the I Heart Brownies and go, you want to sell it for 50,000. I think with what I would do, so I'd need to put in about another, well, I can get it at a cheap rate, so maybe another 5,000 to 10,000 with some extra marketing. We're going to blow the Facebook up, go after the corporate market, and I think that would then be worth probably in the next 12 months 250,000. Well, yep, that's a good deal. Now, your 3-year business plan might say areas of expansion could be, and you use your cash flow forecast to predict what those things could be. Barefoot Fish is expanding into lotions, potions, and all sorts of stuff. We're also looking at full body tanks. We're also looking at IV treatment, so you can go in and get your injectables, say, a big dose of vitamin C or your post-alcohol binge night fix up. We're expanding in store, so we've got expansions in products, expansions in locations, and expansions in services, such as we're going to looking at full body tanks, so you can immerse yourself completely in the tank and have the fish nibble everywhere. It's not as kinky as you think. So have a think about when we talk to prospective franchisees, and we're not looking to sell the business, we're actually selling a franchise. The same process applies. I'm showing them what the business is going to be, not what the business is. I'm showing them that when you buy this, you're getting in when it's going, and this is the projected growth. This is why we're going to grow, and this is how we're doing it, and these are the kinds of things that we're going to be doing. The same would be for I Heart Brownies. Where are you going, and what are people buying into? Certainly, if there's a synergy with the buyer, you'll get a much bigger sale price, or you can negotiate for a bigger sale price, let's say. Any questions on any of that? We're flying through it this morning. And thank you so much for getting up early. I really appreciate that I get up and I'm not standing here by myself. So if there's any more I can give you, please ask questions, poke and prod, and let me fill you in. With your people, let me first ask, does anyone here have staff? Because if you don't have staff, I will then fly through this. If you do have staff, I'll spend a bit more time on it. Just wait till I hear from everyone. Right, we do have staff, so I'm going to go through this with a bit of depth. For those that don't have staff, think about it in terms of if you were buying staff or buying them. No, people aren't chattel anymore. You can't buy them, but you can hire them. So a management team with long-term incentives. If and what I mean by that is if a friend of mine just sold his company. He made sure that before the sale through his company, his senior guys All right, it's going to be the recording's going to be broken into two halves. Sorry about that. That happened yesterday or the day before as well. I don't know what's going on with Zoom, but it seems to drop out for a second and then reconnect. Is everybody still with me? Yep. I'd love to know from your end what happens when that happens. Does it stay in the room and wait for me to come back, or does it kick you out? Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's not too bad. At least you're still there. All right. Of course, reward your loyalty and personal performance with your team. Hire people that are good at selling products rather than services. You should only ever have products in your business. This is the philosophy according to Stu. Products are, while they may be variable, so you may have options on your products, you only have a limited amount of products, and it makes it much easier for your customers to understand what's going on. Anytime you start doing services, services are infinitely changeable and will be just a massive headache for you. Don't do product services, always do products. So much so that even my dentists offer products, not services. Now, you say, how is that possible? Well, if you want a tooth removed, that's a product. They just made it as a product. It's a set price. Here's a product, tooth extraction, and there are some options. One of the options is, do you want pain relief with that? You want to say yes to that one. Hire people that are good at selling products rather than services. Use competition to motivate your sales people. Build the culture where there's friendly competition within your team. There was a guy that took over the Chrysler factory many years ago in the US, and they had day and night shifts creating cars, and the performance of the day and the night shift were very different. And rather than even talk to them, all he did was, in this huge chalk letters, he would just write where everybody walks in and out, night shift, 27 vehicles. And the day shift would come in and they'd see that. And then he'd rub it out and he'd say day shift 32. And then the night shift would come in and they'd see it, and then he'd have to rub it out. It said night shift 42. And this went on and on and on. He didn't say a word. He didn't tell them to do anything. He didn't encourage them. He did encourage them, you know, but he didn't tell them how to do it. He didn't take anything. All he did was let them know what the others had done. It was up to them to take it and do what they want with it. The numbers improved and kept improving, kept improving. He ended up seeing something like a 60% improvement over a 3-month period. Now, they were still focused on safety. They were still doing the right thing, but they internally worked out how to beat the day shift, and then the day shift worked out internally how to beat the night shift. Pretty cool, huh? Competition for your salespeople. Understand your buyer. So if you're selling and you're going to sell on your financials, you're probably going to need 2 years of financials for a decent sale. That is not to say that you cannot sell your business earlier than that, but you're probably not going to be relying on your financials to set your price. Consider what you would rather than perceived value. So the perceived value of your business can be just your numbers on your books. But we spoke about there's probably a lot of other perceived value for the right buyer. So we talked about the guy that has already selling to a whole bunch of, he's got 100,000 people that he regularly buys a food type product that's, you know, small serve ice creams. For him to add brownies, especially if they can be made cheaply and well, for him to add that to his business, you know, he can multiply that more than your financials are going to show. So it's probably not going to be primarily on your own financials that you're going to want that value. So I guess what I'm saying here is that there are many possible fits to understand your buyer. So try not to focus on any one answer. Look at the strengths in your business and who could leverage those strengths and in what way to be able to take it forward. And this doesn't have to just be for sale. This could be for JV. You might decide to joint venture with the ice cream man, right? You provide the ice creams. You've got a bunch of products. We'll provide brownies and some extra bits and pieces. And as a JV, why don't we attack that market? I'll still go after my brownie only market. You'll still go after your ice cream only market, but there's a market for both. And maybe we get in and do this together. So it's just about understanding what the strengths of your business are and how they could be leveraged into other ways. And this is where I was saying, you know, don't be a hobby, be a business. Measure on a scale of 1 to 10. Where are the strengths in your business? Just because you score low does not mean it needs to stay low. If you get a 2 in understanding your financials, that's fine. What would it be to get to a 4, and what are you going to do to get there? Is a 6 worthwhile? What would happen if you were an 8? Things grow over time. Don't discount the fact that you've already got to where you are and can go further. But measure it and then tackle things one at a time. Do not walk away from this webinar going, oh, I'm going to do this, and this. Pick one, do it well. I have, what are we at the moment? 6 businesses, and I'm about to open a 7th. Well, actually, the 7th is a combination of 2, so I'll actually drop down a number because we're doing a massive expansion. How do I run multiple businesses? I do one thing. I don't focus on all of the businesses at the one time because it would blow my head up. One business, solve one problem, move on. Same with yourself. One area that you need to work on that, and then either work on it again or pick another one, but try not to overload yourself, okay? And honestly, your buyer could be you. We've recently built a new ichthyotherapy center over at Jindalee. It's in the DFO there, and it's making so much money, even in the first 3 weeks, that the team are saying, so why are we going to sell this? Sure, we'd get a big chunk of cash, but this store could be worth $1 million. Why would we sell it? And so maybe the buyer is yourself. Again, any questions, please put them up. So understand the next step. Understand your offering. What is it you sell? Are you selling brownies, or are you selling? Are you going to sell your customer base? Are you going to sell your supplier base? Are you selling your recipes and your processes, or are you selling a combination of all of them? Understand your customer. Why do they keep coming back to you? Could you leverage that in some way? Is there some loyalty that you've built up over time? Understand the strengths of your business. If you want to improve the strengths of your business, which ones have the best play in the market? Which ones can you grow on based on your own abilities? And look, if you don't have an ability, that's perfectly fine. Go get it. If you think it's valuable, find someone who has it and get it. Understand your people, because your people are one of those big multipliers in your business. When you leave, someone's going to have to keep doing what it was, the processes of the business. And if you've got people already there, and I know a couple don't have staff, but if you did have staff and they could take over, even if it was a junior staff, at least person buying your business will be slightly comfortable that at least there's a junior that knows kind of what they're doing. Understand the buyer. The buyer is going to have different motivations, and there could be lots of different buyers. So look around at the opportunities. When it's time to move, have a think about all the different people that would be a good fit, whether it's for buying your customer base, your processes, your products, your ability to expand. We do all this stuff in Queensland, but there's a massive market in New South Wales. You're a business in New South Wales who already has that. I sold one business that way. We were the QuickBooks training center for all of Queensland. We had the market. We had successfully built that up. We had training centers up and down the coast. And I wanted to sell it, and I sold it to the guys in New South Wales who wanted to solidify their space in the market. They were the training center for New South Wales. I sold it on geographic location. You will then own the entire East Coast if you buy this. And that appealed to them. They already knew how to run part of the business. It wasn't that they were buying. They were buying my location. And have courage and ask the next question. Where do you want to go next? What's the thing you want to focus on next? But if nothing else, measure where you are now. It's so massively important. You need to know where you are, because when you set a goal for where you're going to go, if you don't have your starting point, it makes it super hard to get there. All right, oh, good Lord, it's well after 9. I'm sorry. Got carried away on the last slide. I'm going to stop the recording there. This has been another ASBAS Digital Solutions. I will stay around and answer questions. If you're watching this from home and you didn't manage to get on this morning, you didn't get to ask me any questions. But please join me for the other webinars that we have coming up. Next Monday, we have Networking Essentials. If a network is big for your business, you're going to want to be there. Followed by Wednesday night with Conjuring Courage. That's how to be fearless. One of my personal favorites. We're going to talk about smashing sales on Friday morning. Following Monday is Money Matters. And then I'm going to finish up the entire month and the entire program with a 2-hour workshop, building a business roadmap. It's everything I know in business, and it's a monster, but it's very, very hands-on. There's, as I say, it's a workshop, so there's a bit of a cost in that. But thank you very much to Business Station, the Australian Small Business Advisory Services, and of course our friends at RDA Brisbane.